Blue Beetle issue 6, Josh Trujillo on the art. Oh, sorry, writing. And then on art is Adrian Gutierrez. So take it away, Matt.
Yeah, so this is the final chapter of the first arc, which boils down to Jaime versus the Blood Scarab. And the first page, or the first couple pages, is an origin for the Blood Scarab. And it turns out that he was an archaeology student named Javier Balsuado. And him and his friends had spent years looking for the lost pyramid where this Blood Scarab was, where Kaya Frey, who the pharaoh that became the Blood Scarab was. They get into this lost pyramid, and the Blood Scarab ends up taking over him, and it feeds off of his life force. So essentially, whereas Kaji Da, which is Jaime's Blue Beetle Scarab, whereas it works with him, it seems like the Blood Scarab is almost like a prototype where it burns through people. So it seems like there's definitely a time limit on who can be the Blood Scarab. And so because Kaji Da was the one that had imprisoned the Blood Scarab and for all these years, it wants to take revenge. So a lot of this issue is all of Jaime's friends that are there to support him, giving him enough time to charge his scarab back up to finally, be at full power to take out the Blood Scarab. And the issue jumps around from, Natita and Dynasties and Starfire. They all get their moment with, the Blood Scarab eventually getting the upper hand. And the art is, really helpful in this, in that Gutierrez, with the layouts, you never get lost in the chaos because it's all taking place in the soccer stadium, and Jaime's in a lot of the same spot. So you kind of get the different vantage points throughout to be able to follow. But of course, my highlight's going to be about Starfire because she realizes that she's probably the most powerful and has the best odds, and that she just needs to keep him occupied. And so she gets a lot of good moments in this to hold him, and eventually knocks Blood Scarab down enough for Jaime to engage Legato mode, which is like his super ultra. And when he does this, Kaji Da completely takes over. And Jaime is like, no, we can't. Like, there's a person in there. And Kaji Da is telling him that, well, no, this is beyond our capacity to handle. He needs to be taken out again. I've done this before. And this is what the Blood Scarab wants. So that operation knows, like, knows that it's going to push, that it's going to have to jump to somebody else. And so Javier, the kid that's inside the Blood Scarab, ends up getting control while Jaime is losing control. So this very nice balance, excuse me. And Javier ends up stopping the Blood Scarab just long enough for Kajida to get, full control. And he's basically calling to, like, just kill me. And Kajida does. Jaime's trying to stop it, and the fight ends on it's just the Blood Scarab and Blue Beetle on a white background with Jaime putting his hand, he's not in control, basically up through the Blood Scarab, with Kajida saying, the objective's complete. Jaime is, like, apoplectic and is very upset. Starfire comes down and is trying to console Jaime, who's on the ground in the fetal position, basically like, I didn't want to do this. I tried to stop it. And as Jaime's on the ground, he starts overloading. And Kajida notices or mentions that there's a tachyon interference. And then he disappears in a flash of light. Basically, if it's tachyon, it's probably timey-wimey stuff. And it ends with the group of friends wondering where he went, teasing the hunt for Ted Cord is next. So I believe they're going to be jumping through time. I'm sure Booster will be showing up. We're going to get a Booster and Blue Beetle if I'm happy. But it was a very, very great ending to a book that has not that it's had up and down. It's been pretty consistent, but kind of just middle across the board. It really the divide between the Scarab and Jaime is something that I really like because they've been in such a lockstep for the last couple years. So for the Scarab to completely override him and lose control, for him to lose control of his own body, it was almost something out of a horror movie. You know, he could not stop what was needed to be done. And in the issue before this, Victoria Cord was saying how this is what they need to do, and Jaime was all pro it, for taking out the Blood Scarab. But when he's actually in the shoes, he doesn't actually want to kill this guy, because when the Blood Scarab takes the mask off, he sees it's a person just like him. So Jaime's compassion comes through, and he knows he can rely on this, these supporting characters that have come through for him. So really good issue, really good art throughout. I mean, it's essentially a long action sequence. And again, Gutierrez handles all of the, it's in this one location, but you're able to follow it through all these different characters and go through the chaos. So, excited to see where this goes. We're going to get some timey-wimey, hopefully. And I'll give it an 8.5.